This was a party congress with a different feel.
Çok farklı bir his. Onu burada görmek, onun için burada olmak çok güzel.
Tens of thousands of supporters and members of the ruling AK Party filled the grounds of a stadium in Ankara. For them, it was a chance to witness history. The return of Recep Tayyip Erdogan to the party he founded as its new chairman and president of the nation. Recep Tayyip Erdogan founded the AK Party in 2001. Just a year later, it won a narrow majority in general elections. Erdogan left the party 3 years ago when he ran for president and won. Back then, the head of state was barred from having party affiliation. A referendum in April to change Turkey's constitution scrapped that rule, allowing Erdogan to retake his place.
President Erdogan has long promised to rejoin the AK Party, a party he created and describes as his real passion. And Erdogan's supporters here feel that his return marks the start of a second chapter in the AK Party's history, marking a new beginning and putting the party at the center of power.
For Turkey's main opposition party, a partisan president is one of many constitutional changes they see as illegitimate. They say the referendum was conducted unfairly.
The CHP has always opposed the partisan presidency. Across Turkey, many secular and liberal people also opposed it. The president is supposed to be a leader to the whole nation. Erdogan is returning to his party to make it powerful again. His dream is to carry out 2 more terms as president and eliminate opposition within his party.
The AK Party is already gearing up for new elections in 2019. With Erdogan back at the helm, the party is streamlining its entire structure, bringing in new, younger faces. But the AKP's spokesman says victory is not a given.
The opposition says also he will stay until 2029. I say there is at least 2 more elections during this period. I mean, where do you know that he will be elected by people? Go and compete.
With the new presidential system, even the AK Party faces a tough political road ahead.
From now on, AKP has to work harder because the party has to get more than 50% of votes to have a majority. AKP cannot achieve this with the number of votes it has obtained in the past because AKP have never won 50% of seats in parliament. This is part of the reforms being made to the democratic system in Turkey, that a party can only come to power with more than 50% of the vote.
But for the AKP faithful, Erdogan's return has inspired hope. A familiar face, promising to bring new changes to Turkey. Sandra Gottman, The Newsmakers, Ankara.
Well, joining me now is Egemen Baş. He's a former member of the Turkish parliament and a former minister for EU affairs. Also with us is Onur Erim. He's the chief advisor to the mayor of Ankara. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Let me begin with you. There was always a connection. Now it's made formal again. Was this necessary right now?
It was, because the new system is going to ensure stability within the government, and the political party wants to ensure that stability is reflected to the grassroots of the party base as well. I think that is going to give a new motivation to the AK Party membership. AK Party is probably one of the largest NGOs of the world with more than 7 million members right now, and that's going to motivate them to work harder, to motivate more people to vote for AK Party. And it was previously said, now we need to ensure that we receive more than half of all of the votes of the country. Right. So we have to extend to new ideas, and we have to be embracing to all the groups. From now on, the party has to be a center party, no longer a center-right or center-left or conservative or liberal, but it has to ensure that it can attract the support and vote of the mainstream and the highest percentage of the community.
Interesting point. Onur Erim, was the referendum result a wake-up call for the AK Party, given that 49% of the Turkish voters said we're not so sure about these changes? They said no. Was it a wake-up call for everybody involved so that they knew we have to work hard for votes, especially in 2019?
I think it was a wake-up call for everybody. Didn't matter which side of the spectrum you're on. It was a wake-up call for AK Party. It was a wake-up call for CHP and everybody else along those lines. Now people are actually understanding what it means to do politics in Turkey and how to gain power in Turkey. You have to gain 50% plus one vote to be able to rule in Turkey. And I think everybody's starting to grasp this idea as the days pass by.
Has the opposition, Egemen Baş, made any reasonable arguments in criticizing President Erdogan, becoming the chair of the AK Party again? Because taken as a whole, you put these things together and they say, you see, it's a slippery slope. We have a presidential system. Now he becomes the head of the party again. This is not a man ruling for all of Turkey, but he's ruling for his camp.
They actually cannot make that criticism because they did the same thing in the past. The founding father of CHP was the founding father of the Republic. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was the president of the country, and he was also head of CHP. Following him was İsmet İnönü, who was also head of CHP and head of the presidency at the same time. So this was a trend. Now we changed through the years into a parliamentary system, but as of last April, people decided that they don't want coalitions anymore and they want to ensure stability by having a presidential system. And naturally, today, the president of the United States happens to be a Republican.
Right.
The president of France happens to be the leader of a newly found political wave. President of other countries have political connections. In the past, however, we would claim that once you're elected president, you just erase your political memory and you become an independent and you are above all parties. But that doesn't make sense. I mean, everyone knew that Gül's heart and mind was with AK Party, Demirel's heart and mind was with True Path Party, and Özal's heart and mind was with the Motherland Party. You cannot anticipate people to be independent all of a sudden overnight. And Erdogan, as you said, was the natural leader of AK Party. He was the founding leader of AK Party, and today he is the chairman and the founder of AK Party. At the same time, he's the president of the country.
Yeah, and fair point. I mean, in the build-up to the US election, we saw President Barack Obama go up, endorse Hillary Clinton, say the Republican candidate was not fit for office. He did everything except carry his Democrat card, right? So in practice, this is happening elsewhere. Again, it goes back to Onur Erim. Why does the party specifically need it right now? Is it a suggestion maybe that the party has been in trouble? Maybe the party has been weakening. That's why they need the momentum of President Erdogan and the symbolism and the charisma that he brings in order to revive the party. Is that a fair argument?
Sure. You could definitely see in people's eyes yesterday at the General Assembly, right before and during the chairmanship vote, that people have been missing Erdogan, including the Prime Minister, which was the one right now, the previous chairman. They will all have been missing Erdogan so much. Everybody sees Erdogan within the AK Party as their natural leader and as their leader that should be. Also, if you go back to the arguments of the new system that we're going to start implementing, I think this is something that we cannot escape from. And I make the same argument about the CHP as the leading minority party in Turkey, that their chairman will also have to run for the presidency. So when you look at the presidential system and its implementation in Turkey, this is a born cause that nobody will be able to evade. If you want to run for the presidency, you will have to be the chairman of the party. You will have to be the ruler of the party, period.
Mr. Baş, I want to go back to something that you said, going from center-right to centrist party. That's interesting that you mentioned that. So there are multiple challenges, economic challenges in the country right now. PKK, unfortunately, the PKK and the government are fighting right now. There was a peace process, no longer happening. You have FETÖ, the Gülenist movement, that tried a coup. You you have Daesh attacks, you have all these multiple challenges. How does this government change policy internally and externally when there are so many threats? How does it become a centrist party?
Well, Erdogan actually gave signals of how he is going to change the policy during his speech at the party convention. He said he's going to emphasize on 3 issues. One is the fight against terrorism. He is considering making the peace process directly with the people, with the Kurdish people, with the Turkish people, with the Alawites, with the Sunnis, with the different ethnic and religiously connected or valued individuals, but directly with the people. Second priority, he said, is economy. He wants to enrich the economy, he wants to expand our exports, and he wants to increase per capita income. And thirdly, he said he's going to focus on foreign policy. He knows that, especially during Davutoğlu's time, we made some wrong choices, and he wants to correct those choices, and he wants to increase Turkey's relations with countries like China, India, Russia, but at the same time embrace and strengthen the current strong relations with Europe and the United States as well. And Turkey is going to shine once again as the most eastern part of the West and the most western part of the East.
But can you have all of that at the same time? Because we saw moving towards the Russians and the Chinese and so on meant fighting with the Europeans sometimes. The words were really tough. Being disappointed
Actually,
in the US.
The fight with Europeans had nothing to do with getting closer to China or Russia.
But it was happening at the same time.
It was because of the neglect and ignorant attitudes of European Union in the negotiation process. I mean, I was in charge of the negotiations for more than 5 years, so I know for a fact that there is no logic the way Turkey is treated. When you go to the Turkish-Romanian border or Turkish-Bulgarian border or Turkish-Greek border, you realize Turkey is much more European than those countries, but they became members of the EU, and Turkey is criticized for not being able to pass the threshold to join that club. That shows that there's discrimination. In the process, the peace process, he is trying to make sure that every single citizen of this country, no matter what their ethnicity or religious background is, feels an equal shareholder of this country. So you said, can this happen all at once? He has done it in the past. Look at his track record. What he has done between 2002 and 2009 was, I think, a superb success, achievement, and he's just going to duplicate his own policies
but you can't,
and embrace everyone at the same time.
Can you really do that? Can you go back to old policies to fix the situation?
Not necessarily old policies, but the old realities of Turkey. And he's going to make sure, I mean, at that time, we had good relations with all of our neighbors, and we could sell to all of our neighbors and all the international community. And once you start having problems with your neighboring countries like Russia, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Georgia,
Is that
Greece,
what Davutoğlu's mistake was?
I think, yeah, Davutoğlu had a doctrine which he wanted to prove his thesis of his book. It just didn't go well in real life. In real life, it's a different policy. And now I think Turkey is coming to a new understanding. And both the Prime Minister's slogan when he was first chosen the Prime Minister was, we are going to maximize Turkey's friends and minimize Turkey's enemies. And that's what the new government has been trying to do. That's what Minister Çavuşoğlu is trying to do. And Thursday, our president and new elected chairman of our party is going to be in Brussels talking to his European counterparts. He said yesterday his priority is to continue the talks with Europe, but only if Europe decides to show respect to Turkey's realities on equal terms.
Onur Erim, I first came to Turkey in 2001, and at that time, the vision of, as it went on to 2002 and so on, the vision of this party was of a kind of underdog that was restoring a sense of dignity to people who felt humiliated for so many years, people who were given a voice. I saw some parallels with that over the weekend, almost like people were trying to restore that sense of being the underdog and restoring dignity to people. Is that where the party is going now?
There was a study, I think, published about a week or 10 days ago that since the inception, since 2002, every 4 out of 5 people in Turkey has voted for Erdogan. I think that shows the gain of the power by not just by the underdogs, as you mentioned, but by everybody across the board in Turkey. I think what President Erdogan has underlined during his speech right before his vote for the chairmanship was that he's again is going to hug everybody, as we say in Turkish, across the board, from east to west, from north to south, regardless of their background, whatever it may be, whether ethnically or religiously. I think he's going back to his saying and his policies back in 2002, not just gaining the support of the underdogs, as you said, but everybody. And in his tenure, in the last 15 years, President Erdogan has, as the numbers show it too, has gained at one point or another, has gained the support and the hand claps of everybody in Turkey. And I think he's going back to that. I think the newly elected party ruling body has also shown signs of many of the things that he has talked about, especially with the youth being more involved in politics.
Yeah, I see 21-year-olds also,
there's a college student as well. The transformation that he made, he changed about 40% of the body, the ruling body of the party. And I think we may also see some changes in the cabinet in the days coming up. So we'll see. Also, the executive body of the party is going to change. So we'll see. He's showing very good signs of actually implementing what he has been preaching for the last couple of months.
Very briefly, Egemen Baş, final question for you. If you were the opposition, would you be thinking of maybe looking for a dynamic, charismatic leader now, given the force of nature that President Erdogan is as president under this presidential system, as head of the party, 2 years until another election? Would you be looking for a charismatic leader?
Thank God I'm not in the opposition, because it would be very difficult to compete against Erdogan. But if I were in their shoes, I would first try to understand the expectations and the vision of the people of Turkey. The main problem of Turkey's opposition is they are very much disconnected from the ordinary citizens of the country. They have to understand the values, the expectations, and the vision of the society, and then find the right candidates who could address those expectations and that vision. The main opposition party and the other opposition parties are very much disconnected from the values of the society.
Okay, well, they've got 2 years. Let's see how they'll do. Gentlemen, it's been fascinating talking to both of you. Egemen Baş and Onur Erim, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.